Since the end of World War II, the US dollar became the world's reserve currency, and America had officially become the symbol of financial prosperity. People would travel from all across the world to find new and exciting opportunities, to start a family, to get a world-class education in pursuit of the American dream. But in recent years, many are starting to question if the American dream is still attainable in today's financial market, and for good reason. It's not so easy anymore. In recent decades, wealth and upward mobility has slowed down. There are many factors that are causing younger generations to lose trust in the great system that have given the generations before them hope. And for the first time in history, Millennials and Gen Z are projected to be poorer than previous generations. And the interesting thing about it, on the surface, income has been steadily growing for decades now. Chances are you're probably earning more money than your parents did, even after adjusting for inflation. But why am I struggling to pay for my tiny apartment today when at the age of 21, my parents were able to afford their first home? At the center of the American dream has always been, if your average American works hard and saves their money, then eventually one day they will be able to buy a home and start to build financial freedom through owning that real estate. Many of us want to own a home to raise a family, to feel connected to the community that we live in, or simply just to tell bad roommates to F off. But in recent decades, the rise in the cost of homes has greatly outpaced inflation and the median household income since 1985. Median home prices have more than doubled between 2000 and 2020, making it very difficult for your average American to afford a home. Because of this, the average percentage of Americans that own homes has fallen, specifically amongst Millennials and Gen Z. For the first time in many years, the Home Affordability Index, which measures the affordability of a home based on the median income and the median home price, has dropped to 98.5, meaning if you earn a median income, you're no longer able to afford a median priced home. All of these factors can feel overwhelming, and it's creating a financial epidemic among young Americans. In recent years, doom spending and massive credit card debt have started to pile up. Now, debt amongst Americans is not a new concept. In fact, older generations have higher levels of debt than Millennials and Gen Z. But where that debt is coming from and whether it is good debt or bad debt is vastly different. Older generations have a higher portion of debt in the form of their mortgage, which is generally considered good debt, as their house is considered an asset that will slowly appreciate over time and help them build equity in their home with the goal of one day selling this house for a profit. Younger generations have more bad debt in the form of credit card debt. Americans have a love-hate relationship with their credit cards, though many try their best to pay their card in full every single month. According to a recent study, 50% of credit card holders carry a balance month to month. Carrying this balance today is more dangerous than it has ever been, as interest rates on these cards have reached record high levels. In fact, 36% of US adults have more credit card debt than they do emergency savings. In other words, today's American taking on credit card debt pay much more in interest than they did just a few short years ago. On top of that, high inflation has contributed to many Americans going into debt to finance their normal levels of spending. Credit card debt won't go away on its own. According to the same study cited above, if you make the minimum payments toward the average balance at the average credit card rate, you'll be in debt for 18 years and will owe more than $9,000 in interest. It's important to prioritize credit card debt payoff because this is generally our highest cost debt by a pretty wide margin. But credit card debt is not the only culprit to blame for Millennials and Gen Z being poorer than previous generations. The next variable to attaining the American dream has always been higher education. The idea that if you gain a higher level of education, that you'll be able to leave university and get a high-paying job that will give you the resources to start a family and build a career. There is no question that compared to previous generations, colleges are charging today's students more for higher education. Between 1980 and 2020, the average price of tuition, fees, room and board for an undergraduate degree increased 169%. In 1980, the price to attend a 4-year college full-time was $10,231 annually and adjusted for inflation. By 2020, the price increased to $28,775. There are a few reasons that prices have skyrocketed over the years, including the increase in student support services. When you go to college now, they provide mental health support services, childcare, and more. There have also been some changes to state and local funding that have also caused prices to increase. But one of the main drivers of increased cost is due to what is known as cost disease. Unlike other areas of the economy, like manufacturing, it's difficult to increase productivity in higher education while maintaining the same experience. New technology and improved methods can increase the production of a steel mill, for example, but there's not much innovation to introduce to a traditional 10-person literature seminar without sacrificing the quality of the experience and of the product. While productivity gains in the overall economy keep the cost of producing goods from growing too fast, higher education and other services like, for example, childcare haven't benefited from that productivity in the same way. That means it costs colleges more to produce an education, and that has led to higher prices for students. Now, when I first started to think about these challenges that millennials and Gen Z are facing today, I thought, well, it's all relative, right? Every generation faces their own version of circumstances, and it's up to each generation to overcome those challenges in new and innovative ways. It turns out the baby boomers had several secret advantages or tailwinds that accelerated their ability to gain that advantage. And those advantages simply don't exist in the same way today. The United States left World War II as victors, and because of that, they inherited an age of prosperity, where the US dollar was now the world's reserve currency. According to Ray Dalio and his book, The Changing World Order, having a reserve currency is great while it lasts because it gives a country exceptional borrowing and spending power and significant power over who else in the world gets the money and credit needed to buy and sell internationally. Having a reserve currency is one of the greatest powers that a country can have because it gives the country enormous buying and geopolitical power. And although the US dollar is still the world's reserve currency today, the boom after the Second World War, combined with the exponential period of innovation that would follow in the 20th century, made the United States the most powerful country in the world. Ray Dalio also discusses the fact that the degree of inventiveness and innovation in a society is the main driver of its productivity. During the period of time after World War II, we saw extreme growth and innovation in manufacturing. And throughout the 70s, the United States saw the golden age of technology, with giants like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs coming into form. Bill Gates founded Microsoft in 1975, and Steve Jobs founded Apple in 1976, a period where the stars aligned and two of the most valuable companies to ever exist began their growth to becoming trillion-dollar companies. Combining the rise of the power of the US dollar with the economic boom that technology brought to the United States in the 20th century created an unprecedented age of production that rarely happens. Finally, baby boomers throughout this time became a larger share of the nation's population, giving them countless benefits. Economist David Willits calls this theory the greater cohort theory. Basically, being part of the largest population gives you more opportunities and political influence. When baby boomers were young, they voted for economic policies that benefited them. For example, free higher education, family support systems, and stronger social welfare. But when they got older and stopped benefiting from these programs, they changed their voting patterns in favor of other things that benefited them at a different and older age. For example, retirement benefits, pensions, lower taxes on wealth. Voting in self-interest isn't a new phenomenon, but it's important to recognize that when baby boomers push for policies that primarily benefit them at their older age, it greatly reduces the very same benefits that helped them when they were younger. As a result, millennials and Gen Z are left without the significant economic advantages that baby boomer generation had. Now, as a millennial or a Gen Z, this may all sound very overwhelming. How are we supposed to overcome these major headwinds and create a path forward? We need to realize that the world has changed. Millennials and Gen Z are playing by a new rule book, written and rewritten by previous generations. To do this, we will need to continually reinvent ourselves and take action. If there are any baby boomers watching this, what is your advice to the younger generation? How can we start this process? If America is going to continue to be the greatest country in the world, it is imperative that us younger generations work together with the older generations that came before us. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think? And watch this video here for more advice on how you can get that conversation started with the different generation.